This is WDSU News at 4.
Continuing our Education Nation coverage, millions of American students attend community colleges each year. For some, it's a launching pad to a four-year institution, but for many others, it's an opportunity to develop technical skills not offered at bigger colleges. And it comes at a time demand for those skills is incredibly high. WDSU reporter Blake Hansen explores the impact one community college is having on New Orleans' workforce.
How much more you have to take off?
At the Delgado Community College Machinery Lab, Alicia Reese is in her prime. But that focus hasn't always been there.
I was here and I was working in photography before the storm hit. And when I came back, I didn't have a degree, and I just wasn't sure of what I wanted to do.
Reese is like many other non-traditional students going back to school for technical training. She can set her schedule around a full-time job and the other very important job of being a mother of three.
I'm a mom, and my schedule's tight, and I really couldn't afford to waste another 4 years, and I needed a job that was in high demand.
The demand for skilled workers is high. A 2012 study by Manpower Group even called it a crisis, finding 49% of U.S. employers cannot find the right talent to grow their businesses. That's why companies like Southeast Louisiana's Latrim Machinery are now partnering with colleges like Delgado to help beef up the workforce.
What happened is we created this great skills gap. So as manufacturing's returned to the United States, including the New Orleans area, we don't have people to fill these jobs. So now we're trying to basically grow them internally.
Delgado Chancellor Dr. Monty Sullivan says it's simple math for students. Get the training, get the job, get paid.
The direct line between where I am today in an $8 an hour job, the direct line to a $15 or $16 or $18 an hour job really comes down to a very simple set of documentable skills.
Meanwhile, Reese is preparing to graduate in May. She already has job options, but just might want to stay in labs like this one.
It's a lot of students, and it's growing every semester. So I'm trying to teach it.
Hoping to continue playing a part in the trend at community colleges like this one across the country. Now on your side, Blake Hansen, WDSU News.
The Education Nation Summit broadcast live from the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts starting today at 4:30, right after this newscast that is shortened today in 15 minutes. You can see it right here on WDSU. Again, right then at 4:30.
Welcome to NBC News Education Nation. Thank you guys for joining us for Job One, an important conversation about Louisiana's workforce, the skills gap, and the future of the economy. We are at the fabulous New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, and later in the program, we are going to be joined by Governor Bobby Jindal. Right now, I'd like to introduce the panelists who are here with me on the stage. Rita Benson LeBlanc, she's the owner and vice chairman of the New Orleans Saints. Yay! And the New Orleans Hornets. Love those Saints. Charlotte Bollinger, she's the executive vice president of Bollinger Shipyards Incorporated. We got all stars on our panel. Rod Miller, president and CEO of the New Orleans Business Alliance. And last, but who could forget, Dr. Monty Sullivan, the chancellor of Delgado Community College. And I am also joined by the wonderful, outstanding WDSU anchor, Sula Kim, in the audience. And you can also join us in this live conversation right now on Twitter. The hashtag is Education Nation, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Education Nation. All right, although the majority of the fastest growing jobs here require an associate degree or higher, get this, just 26% of people older than 25 have an associate's degree or higher. It ranks 48th out of the 50 states. And let's talk about all this. First of all, we have an education issue that we're working on, but what I'm surprised to learn is that there are so many jobs out here, jobs that are sitting here waiting for a qualified person to come and grab. Charlotte, in your industry, we're seeing that. You have jobs and you need workers.
Yeah, in our industry, there's hundreds of job openings every day in all the people in our business, and that's shipbuilding and the boat business. So, you know, we're desperate to find people, and it's the thing that scares us the most in growing our business, whether we're going to be able to find the workforce to do it.
But it seems, okay, so what do you need that you can't find? What are the kids here lacking that you say, gosh, if they only had A, B, C, and D, I'd hire them right now?
Well, number one, hopefully that we could find a way to keep them in school and finish high school and start a dual enrollment. I'm speaking to the group that's not going to be getting the 4-year college degree, which is actually in Louisiana about 14%. And that's really okay because in a lot of ways, because this is what the business community needs. We need about 14% of our business group to be college educated. The rest of them just needs to have a good skill set and the things that go along with that.
And Monty, that's where Delgado steps in, because you guys can actually teach a skill set and get kids jobs, good jobs.
Absolutely, and I think one of the exciting parts about where we are right now as a city and as an economy, we've seen a tremendous increase in enrollment from about 12,000 students to over 20,000 students, and so that trajectory, I think, is one of the things that will help us to be able to meet the kinds of demands that you're seeing from Bollinger Shipyard and others.
Sure, Rita, are you guys looking to hire? What's going on at the Saints and at the Hornets?
Well, we're definitely, the draft's coming up, so I'm definitely looking at talent, but it's a different sort of talent. Yeah. But in general, what we try to do with the teams as a platform is that education gap isn't necessarily what the students have, but it's the awareness of what kind of jobs are here. And in those associate degrees where if it's only a year or a few years in the specific training that is needed, and you know, some of it is sexier and more technologically as an opportunity rather than machinery work, and that isn't. It's not drilling, it's not getting your hands dirty, it's actually working with software technology and electronics and lasers. So it's helping that recruitment. And also we work very closely with Rod Miller I'm on the New Orleans Business Alliance, but working very closely with him to attract other companies here. GE, for instance, was a large employer, but even smaller companies that are more in the digital media, in terms of Pixamondo is associated with the film industry and the special effects. And so they're exciting jobs, but very lucrative jobs.
I think what's interesting, Rod, do kids know what they need to do to get those jobs? Is someone laying out a map and saying, okay, you're leaving high school now, if you want to get that job at Charlotte's Place, or if you want to work with Rita, you need to do A, B, C, and D?
And that's exactly what we need to fix. So we know from the companies that are here, we know that in terms of growing the economy, which is our business, 80% of an economy's growth comes from companies that are already here. So and companies that are here are telling us the #1 factor inhibiting their growth is being able to find people. When we recruit, the #1 factor that companies are looking for is talent. So the problem or the challenge is we haven't been able to communicate, or we haven't communicated clearly what the opportunities are, what the path is. I think a lot of parents don't know. So if parents don't know, it makes it much more difficult for the children to know. So we have to really launch a campaign to educate parents, educate guidance counselors, and make sure children understand the path forward.
I think it's important. The people who I would want to work with, I mean, I do care what their degree says, but I care about so many other things when I meet someone, and we've discussed this, but there's an intangible that matters when you are hiring someone. When someone walks into you, Monty, and they want to work in your admissions office, you care about if they look you in the eye. You care about how they conduct themselves, how they carry themselves, how they're dressed. All these other kind of social skills that prevent a lot of kids from getting jobs, right?
No, you're absolutely right, and those are the kinds of skills, the soft skills, that have to be taught across the curriculum, whether it be in the allied health area or in a manufacturing area, in a digital media area. Those are the kinds of skill sets that I think are timeless in many regards, and really are without regard to the content of what they do every day.
So a lot of these kids could study the things you guys are asking for, like they could do the mechanic stuff, or they could, there's a need for IT jobs, and they could learn all those skills, but that's not even enough, is it, Charlotte?
No, and I give the example in the engineering department, you know, where the people who have the ability to communicate with the customer and with the people on the shop floor are going to make twice as much money as people who just sit at a desk and draw. That becomes a very valid part of how we do business. So those skills are hugely important.
And, you know, the education system gets fixed slowly, slowly, slowly. It doesn't happen overnight, and the jobs are available here and now, Rod? I mean, how do we bridge that gap? Because Charlotte can't wait forever. You know, Rita can't wait forever.
So it doesn't happen overnight, but here it happens pretty quickly. So if we look at what's happened in New Orleans over the last 5 or 6 years, it's been pretty incredible in terms of how the education system has been revamped. Now I think the next layer is really figuring out how do we get companies more involved in our schools day to day. So how do we get companies meeting with the students, telling their stories, and kind of increasing the level of understanding and really integrating that into the curricula at a 7th to 12th grade level.
Got it. All right, let's go to Sella. She's got some people in the audience.
Yeah, and speaking of jobs gap and skills gap here, Brian Dassler is with NOCA. And as an educator, how do you feel like you guys are training the kids for the next level and for success outside of school?
It's a great question. So, I mean, the first thing I think we've got to recognize is that a curriculum designed for yesterday can't possibly prepare students for jobs of tomorrow. Really quickly, one of the examples most recently, the Next Generation Science Standards were released this week. A consortium of 26 states, scientists, science teachers from across the country came together and said something really revolutionary. They said biology and chemistry might not need to be taught in high school as discrete courses anymore, but might need to be reimagined so that students are being prepared, as we're doing here at NOCA, proud public school in and for Louisiana, with the habits of mind and habits of work, of scientific inquiry, experimentation, critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork. All of the things that NOCA's done for almost 40 years in preparing artists for careers in the arts, we're now doing with students in the academic disciplines as well.
All right, and then just for okay, we can give him a round of applause. Good job. I did want to give Maya a platform to talk because she's been not only hounding me all day, but I did want to give you a chance to talk because you have a balance and perspective, a different perspective from Brian. So I wanted you to give you a chance to tell us what you think and to see if schools are preparing you for the job world.
My name is Maya Banks. I go to Lake Area New Tech Early College High School. And before Lake Area, it was Graveton Tilly. And the people there had plans for us so it could become a new technology school. But it became charter, and then all that was taken away, and they're not preparing us.
You don't feel like you're ready?
No, nobody's not ready.
Just a difference of perspective. Thank you very much, Maya.
Yeah, that's it. That is interesting. Why don't you take that, Monty?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, one of the areas I really am thinking about what was said about the science curriculum. I think that is a very interesting perspective, and I think one that the application of that and the connection of what's going on in the real world. Much of what we're trying to solve, we try to solve from a push perspective. In other words, trying to say to kids, this is what you should become. Instead, it has to be much more of a pull. Students have to understand and see a perspective of someone who's working every single day in a technical field, understand what the lifestyle of that field looks like, so that there becomes much more of a pull for that student to come into that field.
Let's talk about other industries that need young people. If young people are watching this program right now and say, God, I want to figure out what I should do, where should I go so I can get a job? Why don't you, Rod, why don't you take that? What are some of the, where should they go? Where should they work?
So, of course, we've talked a lot about advanced manufacturing. That's a huge opportunity. We've talked a little bit about IT. IT is the other really big opportunity, and IT is very diverse. So IT isn't necessarily just sitting in front of a computer and programming, even though that's one of the useful skills, but there is a broad spectrum of opportunity in IT. Another one of the sectors that I think is huge is healthcare. The healthcare opportunity, whether it's on the side as a researcher or whether it's on providing healthcare services, there's a huge need for biomedical professionals.
We're talking about a 4-year degree for those?
No, not necessarily.
Really?
There are some that are 4-year degree, but there are a lot of 2-year degree. What we find, I think the number is something like 6 or 7 to 1 for every doctor or PhD that you have in terms of technical people needed to support that. So there's a lot of 2-year opportunity in the biosciences.
Rita, in a lot of homes, high school is the end of the line. That's it. And the idea of being encouraged or being shown the road or saying, hey, honey, we want you to continue on this road, that's not part of the conversation. How do you sort of tap into that group that needs an extra nudge?
I think what's special about New Orleans is the opportunity that all people have had in the tourism industry, because it is something that you can learn from one of the most expert communities in the country in terms of hospitality, but you don't have to have an extended degree to learn and really just strive to be better. But through the Louisiana Economic Development System and the incentives that our state has, there are some job training programs for them to look to. And there's a variety of different groups that are actually offering that. And so you know, the excitement and the anticipation is that we're all experiencing and exploring this now. So in terms of some of the corporations that are supportive of education and the advancements we've had, we've attracted a great number of Teach for America teachers. And so a lot of them are incredibly qualified, and they stay and they take those jobs afterwards if they don't stay in education. So, and some of them become entrepreneurs with the help of the Idea Village. And so a lot of it is just that we're this area that's percolating. And as we all experience and evolve together, you're just not set in any track. And I think that that's what everybody can learn from New Orleans, and what we're doing in the state of Louisiana is that you have opportunity, and it might start somewhere at Delgado with a one-year program, but on an entrepreneurial basis, and on also for those jobs that Charlotte offers, that they can be $50,000 to $150,000 annual salaries.
That's amazing.
And it's not difficult.
Right. Charlotte, if you were going to give a 101 for someone who was coming up to you and asking for a job, what would be a couple of things if people are watching and they want to know the right way to approach and get a job? What advice would you give them?
Well, you know, for 80% of the children, I would say, if you stay in school and you start a career path, dual path training, by the age of 19, you're not going to have a lot of debt.
Right.
And you can have a very, very good job. And I don't want to define it just in my own industry, although I love my industry. But there's plenty of jobs available in our industry. And by the way, we have a huge IT department group called SHAN, which does logistical support and technical writing and training for companies all over the United States. So sometimes within our business, like shipbuilding, you know, we have lawyers, we have engineers, we have you doing a whole program for drafting. Lots of opportunity. It's not just welders. You know, it's huge about the opportunities that are out there. So I'll say figure out what you kind of like and are good at, and go for it, and I think you can get paid well and handle a family on what you can earn.
That might be the best advice. Someone said that once. Find what you love and figure out how to get paid for it. Because I think often we just do anything just because we think it's the right way.
And don't force people into a peg that they don't fit into.
No square pegging around hole, Charlotte. We know what you're talking about. All right, I want to thank all of our panelists. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I will be speaking with Governor Bobby Jindal. He'll be with us. I want to thank our great audience. Stick around. We'll be back in just a minute.